everyone, I'm Asia Dang and this is Scott Wolf and we are here for USC Report. Now Scott, USC barely edged out Arizona this past weekend 48-41. What did you think about the game?
Well, obviously the defense struggled a lot. There's two things. One, Arizona's offense supposedly was pretty good, but USC, they ran a base defense. Monty Kiffin, he's getting a lot of criticism right now. I actually think Lane Kiffin should be criticized because he's approving the game plan. So if you're not happy with the game plan, it's the head coach who approves it, not the defensive coordinator in the way the system is set up right now. So Arizona exploited that system, and then you just saw holes in the defense. Chris Filippo was very tired in the linebacker. He didn't get a break the whole game. So, a lot of chickens came home to roost. I mean, 2 weeks in a row they've given up 40 points. That's never happened in the history of USC football. So think about going back to 1888. No team has given up 40 points 2 weeks in a row.
Wow.
So that's pretty bad. On the other hand, I don't think the offense necessarily gets a free pass. They had a good game last week, but they struggled the first 3 games of the season. Arizona State, they had a lot of turnovers. So I don't think you can say right now USC is a good offensive team and a bad defensive team. I think right now they're kind of a team at a crossroads where their offense, I think, is going to struggle against good teams, and their defense obviously is struggling against teams that aren't even considered good. Arizona's 1-4.
Right.
So Arizona didn't score a lot of points against Oklahoma State. They didn't score a lot of points against Oregon, Stanford. So, we've got 7 games or so left in the season, and it's the teeth of the schedule, so we could have some problems here from the perspective of the USC football team.
Well, speaking of offense, you're kind of just critical, but Matt Barkley was selected to be the Pac-12 Player of the Week. What do you think about that?
Well, he did set a record for offense for USC, the most starts, 470. So he had one of his best games of his career. It followed one of the worst games of his career. He had 3 turnovers against Arizona State. So it's another thing, kind of like that he mirrors the team, in my opinion, where he's up and down. And I think he's having a good season overall, but the question I still have is how is he going to be in the clutch when they're playing Oregon, Stanford, Notre Dame, and South Bend. Those are the games that good teams win. They're the games that the fans demand, performance. And, I don't think a record for yards necessarily signifies he's the best quarterback in USC history. So he's got still some things to prove. I always say he doesn't have a signature win yet. If he can beat Oregon, if he can beat Stanford, or even Notre Dame, who I think is getting better every week, I think he can maybe say, well, there's my signature win.
Well, those games are definitely coming up in the schedule. What do you think the offense needs to work on, and what do you think the defense needs to work on?
I think the defense, well, first thing I think they need to work on is being more aggressive in the play calling. I think they need to put more pressure on the quarterback. What's disappointing to me is the defensive line is all juniors and seniors mostly, and they're not putting a lot of pressure on the quarterback, and that's supposed to be the strength of the defense. And then that creates a lot of pressure on the secondary because the quarterbacks are getting some time to throw the ball. So they got to figure out a way to get more pressure on the quarterback. They also have to get, I think, more guys into the game. Shane Horton, Lamar Dawson, who's been hurt. They got to rotate more at linebacker and keep these guys fresh because they're tired right now, and that's not a good sign, especially when you go into these Pac-12 games where you have all these spread offenses and you're running all over the field, flying around every play, and you wear down. So they've got to play guys. Lane Kiffin always says, I want to play more guys, but I really don't think he's done it enough, and he's finally got to just tell himself, I have enough confidence in these guys to play them.
Right. Speaking of Lane Kiffin, what did you think of that 4th and 1st call that he had at the end of the game?
I thought that was really a questionable call. He was 4th down. He could have punted. Instead he goes for it. They don't complete the pass, and Arizona gets the ball in great field position, and they score a touchdown. And Arizona had an onside kick, and they could have recovered that and potentially tied the game. So he really took a risk, and it backfired. So I thought that was the poorest decision he made in the game, and it's followed some questionable decisions earlier in the year. He had Matt Barkley try to throw a touchdown pass on first and goal with the 5 against Syracuse, which was kind of running up the score. Barkley got sacked, which I thought was a bad call. So sometimes it looks like he's going for records more than just worrying about winning the game.
Right.
And he's always aware of these records, so I feel like he's kind of on the sideline saying, let's go for the record. In fact, this is kind of an inside story. I was told by people here in the Heritage Hall that at the Syracuse game, he did say on the sideline, let's go for the record. This is going to be the chance we'll have to get Matt Barkley his 6th touchdown pass. So they did go for it, and it backfired.
Right.
So you can't worry about records like that. You got to just win the game, especially right now. USC's not a good enough team to where you can screw around, go for records. You got to just worry about wins and losses right now, especially a second-year coach who's still I think he's on the hot seat, actually.
Right. Cal's coming up next week. What do you think the team needs to work on?
Well, today they worked on their red zone defense, which is inside the 20-yard line, because they feel like they're giving up too many touchdowns. It's kind of a hard thing to work on. Like, you can say you're going to try to stop giving up touchdowns, but actually doing it is a little harder. So we'll see if they can do that. I just think they need to work a little bit on actually the schemes, which I don't put on the players as much as the coaches. I was a little disappointed in that they couldn't run the ball against Arizona, and I just think that the game plan is too passive right now from a defensive standpoint. So I think USC, even under Pete Carroll, was an aggressive kind of take charge mentality team, and I think that's what this team needs to be. And I think sometimes Lane Kiffin goes into games thinking, I really don't want to run the ball if I don't have to. So I'd like to see them establish the run and make their defense more aggressive.
All right, we're almost halfway through the season. What do you see happening for the rest of the 7 games?
Well, the interesting part of that is the next 7 games. Cal, I don't know how tough a game that's going to be, but there's the tough games are now coming up.
Right.
Notre Dame, Oregon, Stanford, Washington. They've got 1 loss and playing much better than a lot of people thought. And UCLA at the end of the year. So these are going to be the games that decide the season. Last year the team started out pretty fast, and then they lost some games in that second half of the season. So I think everything's going to revolve around, he can't lose games they don't expect to lose. Like, if they lose to Oregon and Stanford, people are going to be like, well, those are expected. But he better not lose to Washington. UCLA would be a disaster. So I think there's going to be a lot of pressure the last 7 games of the season.
All right, Scott, would you like to say anything else?
I think I've said enough.
It's time to cut him off.
I do want to say something. I want to welcome you as the co-host of the show. You want to tell us a little something about you?
Okay. Let's see. I'm Asia. I'm from Hawaii. Went to Punahou, which, if you don't know, is a huge football school back in Hawaii. And sorry, but I'm a Notre Dame fan.
Wow. We shouldn't have let you speak, I guess, because now you just turned off about 85%
I think you did that during the interview. They shut it off.
That's my job. Your job is to keep them listening. So now you upset our fan base.
Sorry.
But you do root for USC when they're not playing Notre Dame, yes?
Yes, I do. It's just that my homies, Manti and Robbie, are on Notre Dame. I have to support them. But yes, USC, when they're not playing anyone else, I'm all for them. Fight on.
Okay, so on that note, why don't you wrap this up for us and close out for us here?
All right, thanks for watching USC Report. I'm Asia Dang once again. This is Scott Wolf, and you can check us out on InsideSoCal.com/USC.